And welcome to the November 2023 First Monday. Our speakers today are old friends, Clayton Powell III and Judy Kang, briefing on their current project, Election Cybersecurity as Public Diplomacy. Adam, as many of you know, was recently president for several years of the Public Diplomacy Council, one of PDCA's predecessor organizations. And in that role was the architect of these sessions, the first Monday. So we're all here thanks to Adam. He is also the director of Washington programs for the USC Annenberg Center on Communication Leadership and Policy, one of our three co-sponsors. In that role, Adam coordinates CCLP's Washington, D.C. programming, which includes monthly public forums on such subjects as public diplomacy, national security, and the future of communications. Judy, who has also been an active member of PDC and PDCA, is currently USC Election Cybersecurity Manager. Our tech hosts today are USC's Owen Foster, who's online. Owen, why don't you make yourself known to your colleagues online? And here in the room, Gabby Stahl. Gabby, where are you? Right there. Okay. DWU's Yvonne O. Yvonne, you're there? Okay, you're moving around the room. And Alexis Pozol.
Alexis stepped up.
Oh, she just stepped up. Okay. For those of you online, make sure Owen gets your question. To make sure Owen gets your questions, please be sure to post those questions in the Q&A box. If you're experiencing technical programs, use the chat box to reach out to us. These talented tech hosts represent our three co-sponsors, USC's CCLP, GWU Institute for Public Diplomacy and Global Communication, and the Public Diplomacy Council of America. Adam and Judy, we're delighted to have you with us today. Your topic has tremendous importance at this critical moment in our democratic life. Over the past several years, this bipartisan initiative has been providing in-state training in all 50 states to reinforce election integrity and build defense against digital attacks. And over the past year, you've taken the show abroad, underscoring our concerns about election integrity. Oh, I'll let you talk about it. Please, Adam and Judy.
Thank you, Joel.
Glasses out.
Hey, Eric Severide once opened a radio broadcast on CBS by saying, everything you are about to hear actually happened. And everything you're about to see and hear actually happened. It's a series of accidents and coincidences. We never set out to do this. So bear with me and we'll go on this journey together. First, I'm going to talk about the project, how it started, and then we're going to talk about the lessons learned, how we've joined with other countries, and what we're going to be doing next year. This is a wonderful line from the Secretary of State of Minnesota, one of our active partners, Steve Simon. In every state, we went to all 50 states. In every state, our lead individual was a statewide elected official, governor, senator, secretary of state, lieutenant governor in Alaska. Steve Simon, one of the highest, held in high regard that way by Democrats and Republicans. And he had a great line in our workshop. He said, the reality is that we're in a race with no finish line. We can't stop. We have to keep going. So this began in 2015. We were having a meeting at the USC office, the old office on Pennsylvania Avenue. Vince Cerf, the guy who invented the internet, was sitting there and he said, "Why are we talking about the subject of this meeting when there's a more pressing concern, which is securing everything connected to the internet?" So Adam, why don't you have as your new project in your retirement, securing everything connected to the internet? Want me to move closer? And so everybody around the table was nodding. I thought, this is an impossibly large task. And about a month later, this is a picture of USC's president in 2015, Max Nikias, at a conference in Shanghai. I saw him at this conference about a month after we had the session with Vint and the others. And he said, "Adam, you're thinking too narrowly. My appointments are in communications and engineering." He said, no. Communications, engineering, public policy, business, let the law school know what you're doing, let political science know what you're doing, let international relations know what you're doing. And I remember saying, "Max, you want me to report to 5 deans?" Yes. So we put together a multidisciplinary team with 5 different professional schools at USC. So 2016 happens. Democratic National Committee gets has an email incident, and here we are with a team already in place, ready to take on election cybersecurity. One of the first things we heard. This is from NPR from 2022, but this goes back to 2016. We kept hearing this. That here's the lesson from Kiev. They've been attacked by the Russians with cyber attacks. For so many years, the work they've done to be resilient has really paid off. Got to pay attention to what Ukraine is doing. At the United States. But here's the challenge here in the United States. We have a decentralized election system. We don't have a national election. We have a lot of local elections, then we add up the results. We have more than 8,000 election districts governed by state laws, local laws. Most election workers are part-time volunteers. So how in the world are you going to have all of these people working together to protect against cyber attack? So we began by working with state governments, closed door, and no media, working with chief technology officers, chief information officers. And the first one we did, was in Richmond. And we then went to Minnesota. We did half a dozen states in 2019. And then in June of 2019, Judy and I were walking down a hotel hallway in Salt Lake City at the National Governors Association. And we met 2 people who we'd never met before. And one of them said, "What do you do?" And I said, "We do election security training for state government." "Oh, you do what?" "We do election security training for state governments." "Oh, how would you like to do all 50 states?" "Oh, you're talking about a multi-million-dollar project. There's no time to get this through your company's bureaucracy or our law department." And she said, "It's in my budget already." "Oh, did I give you a card?" And in 20 minutes in the hallway, we worked out a deal with Google for a multi-million-dollar gift to USC to fund 50 state initiative. Each and every state would have election cybersecurity training for election workers and for political campaigns. We never set out to do this. This just came to us, and we were fortunate enough to get Google to wire us the money. We staffed up and launched in January of 2020 in Maryland. And you can see how large the room was. This is actually this is a cybersecurity training center, which is right down the road from National Security Agency. And so it was well equipped, well located, and we had a lot of state officials. What should we try to do in these sessions? I had a list of 11 things we wanted to do in computer science and cybersecurity. And before launching in January of 2020, We met with people who've run state election offices. We met with CISA at the national level. Matt Masterson was the point person in the federal government for Election Cybersecurity 2020. And we met with people who've run campaigns, including presidential campaigns. And in one of the meetings, we met with Bob Shrum, who ran John Kerry's 2004 campaign. And he looked at my list and he just shook his head. You get to do three things. That's all you're going to do. Three things. Do three things well and share best practices. So with Bob's advice, we set off and focused on cyber safety and cybersecurity, disinformation on misinformation, which became increasingly important, as we all know, and resilience and crisis response, what to do when the bad thing happens. It was also Jeff Cowan, who's our boss and former head of the VOA. Actually, maybe the only former head of the VOA whose father was also the head of the VOA. Jeff said, sign up state university partners across the country. So across the 50 states, we have university partners. We have media partners, newspapers, public radio or television stations. And then we have a national media partner, the Associated Press, to help get the word out and to help reinforce what we're doing in our workshop. Here's an example of something that we would hand out. Pre-COVID, we handed it out in person, and now we simply hand them out electronically. And Judy will show you some more. This is something that's put together by a classmate of mine from MIT who does cybersecurity training for the largest Fortune 100 companies, for their boards of directors and for their CEOs, their senior executives. And I said, okay, we're dealing with people who have no background in computer science. They are mostly volunteers. And you reduce your advice, resiliency, down to one page that they can, that we can hand out and they can put on a bullet board. So this is what Michael Coden put together for us. He was in all of our workshops last year, and he'll be with us again next year, doing some interesting things that we hope we'll be able to afford. Then a little over a year ago, year and a half ago, we had, how would you like to expand to other democracies? Well, we're a little busy with the 50 states, but what do you have in mind? Well, we wound up getting funding from Google to launch in Greece in June of last year, South Africa, October of last year, Singapore in January, Canada in, I think also in January, Taiwan, and we're going back to Taiwan in January for their election. We did 2 programs in the UK, most recently at Strathclyde University at the end of the Association of European Political Science Association. We expect to do Korea next year. And this afternoon, I'm getting on an airplane to go to Australia to prepare for a conference we're doing there next year. And the interesting thing is that we face some of the same bad actors, democracies all over the world facing the same bad actors, but there's always something different in each country where we learn, we try to listen, try to be good public diplomats and listen as well as talk. This is the opening of our first international conference in Athens. So out the window over there, just off the screen left, is the Acropolis. So we're right there in the birthplace of democracy. And the person in gray, in the middle of the picture, was our host from the University of Piraeus. And on the slide, he's showing us what had recently been unearthed by archaeologists, one of the early elections held in Greece, one of the first elections held in Greece, when they voted on shards of clay shards, or hardened shards. And what they found, and you put the shards in a large earthen jar. When the election's over, you take out the shards, you count the votes. What the archaeologists had just discovered was that large shard in the slide on the left, it turns out, had the same handwriting as other shards. Somebody had stuffed the ballot box. So we've had problems with election security going back to the very beginnings of democracy, thousands of years. So let's talk about lessons learned here and overseas. Why are so many democratic elections targeted here and overseas? Here are some of the specific things that people want, bad actors want. They want to disrupt political parties. They want to disrupt campaigns. Here in the United States, one of the big issues is people collecting donor lists and contacts. And one California campaign manager said, somebody vacuums up my donor list and my contacts and it takes down my computer on election day. I'm dead. I'm dead in the water. Ransomware is a big factor in elections everywhere where we've gone. Elections as a backdoor into intelligence and defense facilities. The governor of North Dakota gives a great example in one of our North Dakota workshops. He said, we found the Russians attacking a small school district in a rural part of North Dakota, a small rural county in North Dakota. Why would the Russians bother to attack this school in rural North Dakota county? Well, what they want to do is get into the kids' mobile phones and laptops. Kids take them home. From there, the Russians can get into the home networks, get into their parents' phones and laptops. What do their parents do? Maybe they run the election in the county. Maybe they run the Minuteman missile base down the street. So it's a backdoor into other targets. Identifying future leaders. This is something which we first heard from Joe Marks, who was the lead Washington Post cybersecurity reporter for years. He said that the lesson of 2004 for security agencies all over the world is they weren't paying attention to this little known state legislator in Illinois. And suddenly, Barack Obama becomes president of the United States and is one of the most important people in the world. So what Joe said is now, and we've heard this from people in other countries, now what all the foreign intelligence services are doing is they're going in looking for information about junior politicians who might become national leaders in the future. So they're vacuuming up a lot of information. He said China is really good at this. And then finally, what the lead intelligence person at the New York Times, who was in one of our workshops, he said the reason that that adversaries are attacking is it's cheap, it's easy, and it works. Look at what happened to the Office of Personnel Management hack. The Chinese were after, he said, a couple of 100,000 personnel records. They discovered the entire federal OPM database was sitting there with little protection. So they vacuumed it all up, tens of millions of records. And they have them back in China, or at their leisure, they can go through and see who might be there. So that's sort of the motivating force. Something which Homeland Security kept reminding us in our discussion. What's the return on investment for the bad guys? What really makes their investment work? It's very hard to actually change votes in the United States. Fortunately, it's easier than you might think in some areas, but it's much easier to cause chaos, cause people to lose faith in democracy, lose faith in elections. So they might even look like they're trying to change votes. What they're really trying to do is cause chaos. And having gone around 50 states, we did 3 programs in Alabama in 21 and 22. And we found that both political parties, Democrats and Republicans, they don't trust the voting machines. You read about it, it's mostly Republicans, but we went to a meeting of Democratic leaders. We don't trust these machines. We don't know what's going on inside. And they say it's proprietary. So, and let me tell you, the Russians are all over Alabama, Mississippi, all through the South, with very localized attacks. And this is, again, this is a line from our lead cyber safety presenter. He says, everyone is a target, even you. Don't think that just because you are a junior volunteer, you aren't going to be targeted. If they're going to be sweeping through looking for weak points, and if a weak point is your phone, that's how they're going to try to get into your election operation. The Secretary of State of Kentucky, this is his line, he said, why do you lock your door at night? I mean, any really good thief can pick the lock. So he said, the reason we have put up cybersecurity across Kentucky is to make it just difficult enough. We know the Russians can get in if they really want to, we want to make it just difficult enough, they'll go someplace else. So we're not stopping the attacks, we're moving the attack. We just don't want them to do something. 2022, this is Kim Wyman. She was Secretary of State in the state of Washington in 2020 and was our partner there. She became the head of election cybersecurity, homeland security. And she said in our workshops, 22, she was seeing wider and more pervasive attacks in 22 than in 20. And it's worldwide. These are Chinese hackers who've been attacking human rights groups all over. And look at what they're taking advantage of. That people are failing to implement basic cybersecurity defenses. Again, Bob Shrum and Mike Murphy, who ran Jeb Bush's 2016 campaign, they said, start with passwords. Passwords. Start with passwords. We find 90% of the people in our workshops change their password. We don't want to know what they were, but stronger passwords, multi-factor authentication, really basic thing. Attacking media. This is a very little known attack that occurred on election night 2020. This is Gary Pruitt, president of the Associated Press, who's on our advisory board. And after the 2020 election, I said, Gary, what keeps you up at night? He said, I'll tell you what kept me up at night on election night 2020. We were hit by thousands of sophisticated cyber attacks from Russia. Can you talk about this? He said, yeah, I guess so. So in our January 2021 workshop, our first one, he actually appeared it was during COVID, so he was in the empty AP headquarters in New York. And he took about 5 or 6 minutes to describe what he said was the most terrifying night of his life. Fortunately, somebody who we've now met tipped off Homeland Security 2 months ahead of time that the Russians are going to attack the AP. And so Gary said he got a call from the Secretary of Homeland Security saying, we have identified the Associated Press as a target, as a prime target for Russian attacks on election night. So they spent 2 months beefing up their security, putting in duplicate, triplicate systems. And Gary said, we barely made it through, but we made it through. So I said, Gary, for the sake of those who are here in our workshop, can you explain what would have happened if the Russians had succeeded in taking down the Associated Press computer system? He said, oh, there'd be no election returns. It turns out the AP is the sole source of election returns on election night. Later, 2 weeks later, the Secretaries of State formally submit the totals. But on election night, the AP is the only organization that totals up the votes. So if they could take down the AP, and Gary said, imagine you turn on your television, open up your laptop, you're listening to the radio, and maybe since their customers are also in London and Tokyo and around the world, and imagine you're watching the BBC or NHK or Deutsche Welle, and they say, oh, there was a presidential election in the United States, but we don't have any results for it. Think of what that does to faith and democracy around the world. And now they're attacking local organizations, media organizations. There's a Philadelphia fire hit during election coverage. So you see how the dots how the connections start to be made. Kinds of attacks that are happening here in the United States are like the kinds of attacks that we're seeing in other countries. So that's when suggested to us a year and a half ago, why don't you go around to other countries and compare notes? What are the best practices in the US? What are the best practices in other countries? What are you seeing that we might be, in terms of attacks that might be hitting the US soon? And that was a real education. And somebody, I think it was Matt Armstrong, I think it was EDCA members, who said, now you're talking about public diplomacy. American experts, in addition to Judy and me, we have faculty from USC who go on these trips. You have US experts going to other countries, meeting with their counterparts at universities and government agencies around the world. So South Africa, October of last year, this is, he's from the South Africa Election Commission. And he said, we have centralized control, everyone votes on paper. So you can't really attack the election. they're getting cyber attacks from Russia going after their voter database. Nice election you want to have here. You need to pay us or we won't release your voter rolls. And he said, we don't know if it's the Russian government or if it's just criminals in Russia, but that's where the attacks are coming from for South Africa. Look at this, what Russia has done in Africa this year. This is October this year. They used a disinformation campaign aimed at destabilizing Burkina Faso and 4 other democratically elected governments along its borders. The result, all 5 former French colonies have been toppled. And the new leaders, surprise, surprise, they're pro-Russia, and they're even replacing French troops with Wagner mercenaries. This is Prime Minister Trudeau on the closing day of our conference in Canada. He didn't say this in our conference. I wish he had, but that day he said that China was, his word, aggressively attacking Canadian elections. A running story in Canada. So look what happened here just last week before last. U.S. Attorney for Central California, closed door interview with the House Judiciary Committee, People's Republic of China trying to influence our elections in California, trying to target some candidates. So again, same challenges and comparing notes on how to defend has really been quite effective. A month ago, Judy and I were in Korea. We're getting ready to do a conference there. We have 2 universities that want to partner with us, as well as the government. And we met with Korea's Deputy Minister of Public Diplomacy. And he began by saying, he totally gets it. He began by saying, election cybersecurity is public diplomacy. Okay. So we've seen that at the highest level. We also had some off-the-record things that we can't share in detail, but one was in the UK in June. We had a speaker from British intelligence. We couldn't use his name. We couldn't photograph him. We couldn't record his voice. And the protocol here is that I'm David from the ministry. So he did his presentation, nothing terribly classified. But then I said, now you advise senior government officials in London about what to do with security. Now we have the ability of people creating a synthesized voice, which is so good that it fools bank proprietary voice recognition systems. So what if somebody calls a British cabinet officer and says, hello, I'm the prime minister, please do this. He said, oh, we don't take those calls anymore. What do you do? Somebody calls a cabinet officer or a senior government official. You say, I'll call you right back. Hang up. Dial and say, did you just call me? Because there are too many opportunities. So I also then asked, what about video? Because people can now do convincing deep fake videos. And he said, when we're on a video call with senior officials, we always say, please turn your head. Turn your head. Face 90 degrees up. Why? Because the software can't do ears yet. It will, but right now it can't do ears. So interesting things that we learned just by talking with people in other countries. Now, quickly, what we're going to be doing differently next year, and having the same attack vectors: passwords, multi-factor authentication, social engineering, unprotected data, but all of these are more at risk next year because of artificial intelligence. And political consultants here in the United States are saying 2016 was the social media election, 2024 is going to be the artificial intelligence election. AI software already commercially available, off the shelf, is so powerful that you can have automated mass production of disinformation. And maybe it's somebody you trust who you're seeing on the screen telling you something which is totally untrue. Here is what I think is really going to be the problem next year, which is seeing is not believing. We were in a session last week where we're told the budget for the highest end software to do fake videos is $30,000, $30,000. That's nothing for a country or a political campaign. So we're going to be seeing unbelievably good-looking fake videos. Look like it's coming from friends and relatives. It'll look like emails are going to be tailored to look like the language that your friends and relatives may be using, or your boss. And this, I think, is something that didn't get much attention here. This is deep inside the New York Times, got some attention in Europe. Somebody, we don't know who, created a fake deepfake of Putin. And it was so good, it was actually used by Russian television. It was Putin calling for martial law and military mobilization. Well, while the broadcast was going out on Russian television and radio, the Kremlin went crazy and called it, no, this isn't real, stop. And so this is the kind of thing that can happen. People are already creating these jokes, Biden endorsing Trump, that sort of thing. Here's the biometric screen that fooled the Chase credit card biometric system. And I told you what the lesson from the UK was. So that's the beginning of our project. Judy has more, but why don't we pause here for questions? Anybody has questions, comments? Bruce, please come to the mic.
A number of us have been going crazy photographing these slides. Are these going to be available to us afterward? Your slideshow?
Oh, sure. Actually, I think most of it is on our website already. But yes. Sure.
We will link to it on the website.
Oh, great. Thanks.
Anybody else here? Yeah. Nobody? Anybody online? Oh, you have a question online.
Sorry, how to make my way around. Okay, so today I'm going to be representing all of our online Q&A questions. So we have one that says, given current political polarization around election security, how has USC Election Cybersecurity Project been able to overcome skepticism from boards of elections, political parties, or campaigns to receive technical assistance?
Great question. We in 2020, we had all but one of the state political parties working with us, 99 of the 100 state political parties. And one reason is that I think is that we were focusing in 2020, before we did our international, we were focusing on threats from Russia and China. And that's something which both parties could agree on. The other thing that we did was our lead presenter on disinformation and disinformation, probably the most polarizing subject of all. She had a great case study which she used to open her presentation. It was the Bill Murray for President campaign. And so everybody starts laughing. Bill Murray, the comedian, I think he's a Canadian citizen. How could he have a presidential campaign? So everybody's laughing. He never had a campaign. He tried to stop the online spread of news about his non-campaign, and he couldn't do it. He couldn't stop it. And so our presenter used that as, okay, here are the lessons in what you can and can't do. Here's somebody who was trying to stop disinformation about himself. And so everybody's laughing, but they're getting the information about disinformation and misinformation. Why don't I stop there and turn the platform over to you? Oops, one more.
Any evidence who carried out
Can you
the
tell
fake?
the mic,
So I don't think it's even on.
it's on.
Our online people can hear it.
Any evidence of who carried out the fake Russian hack?
Did we ever figure out? I'm sorry.
Any evidence of who carried out the fake Russian hack on the mobilization?
It was the one in Russia. No. Maybe they know in some three-letter government agencies, but I don't think it's ever been made public. Judy, let me turn things over to you.
Besides China and Russia, there is another country like Venezuela, Iran, or North Korea that is involved in these types of attack.
Yes, we use Russia and China almost as a phrase, which talked to David Sanger at the New York Times. He said that 38 countries hacking into the U.S. election. I said, okay, what's country number 38? There's Bangladesh. Bangladesh? Why are they hacking into the U.S. election? Well, they just want to look around, see what's going on, and look for the next Barack Obama and see what the Bangladesh diaspora is doing. Yeah, it's cheap and easy. They hired 2 people to do it, he said, Bangladesh.
And in addition to what Adam was just saying, that we discovered from local representatives that like some people hack children's emails, because once they are hacked, they can go into their parents' account who may be working for National Guard or government. So everybody needs to change their password and be aware that could happen to anyone, including the young children. So I want to take this moment to briefly share what happened in our election cybersecurity workshop. So as Adam mentioned, we pivoted to IoT cybersecurity program. And USC's 5 schools, not only the Edinburgh, the communication and journalism, we had law school, business, public policy, and engineering, of course, all working together to build the modules. And it was starting from the very high, and then we understood that a lot of campaign workers do not necessarily have a computer science background. So I was kind of a person who read the modules first, and if I didn't understand what was taught there, we sort of went back to our experts saying, can we sort of use a real language that we can communicate with the public? So that was how we started to modify our modules here and there. So this is all the workshops that was closed door before our open to the public workshops. And then this is our proud slogan, our candidate is democracy. So it actually came out from our series of meetings on campus with Mike Murphy and Bob Shrum, who ran the presidential campaigns for Republican and Democratic parties. And we were saying we stay campaign without a candidate, and they said, no, your candidate is democracy. So that's how we have been using that as our slogan. So in DC, our old USC building office, as many of you have been to, we had a sort of workshop meetings with like people, including Binter from Google and CISA and other university people here in DC, and with Kang, who have been working in election cybersecurity. So our big launch in January 2020 was in Maryland, Columbia, and it was a one-day workshop before the pandemic. So each module we went for an hour, and we had more than 200 people attended for that day-long workshop, and we had a media coverage, including Washington Post and Politico. And the second workshop was at the state capitol in Ohio, and it was opened by the Secretary of State. And we went to California, and that's our one of our presenters of cybersecurity and cyber safety at USC campus, and in Kentucky and Nevada. And as we were having very good workshop in Pennsylvania, and so far we had a lot of great media coverages. So in 2020, because we went to all 50 states individually, it was about more than 100, and here's Adam Powell doing an interview with the local news. And as everybody remembers, COVID hit. So Adam and our director were already in Georgia, and we heard from USC that everybody has to stop and like go back home and wait until we hear further from the school. So we quickly pivoted to the Zoom. And I know this webinar, this is a webinar, but we sort of, because we started with in-person meetings, we wanted to sort of keep that atmosphere of like having in-person meetings. So we chose a Zoom meeting. And so you could see people's like faces if their videos on. And it was again before the pandemic, 6 in-person workshops, and then the rest was all the Zoom virtual workshop. And we had more than 4,000 participants, including the speakers. And because we were using the Zoom, the good side was that we could have more very busy state governors and secretary of state because they could just like join us live from wherever they were. So we had more than 200 VIP speakers and panelists, including the senators, governors, and election directors, and both party chairs also. And we also had, as Adam mentioned, local newspaper journalism people in state university professors and experts. So in-person workshops, we would hand out this one pager that anybody can use. This has do's and don'ts for campaign workers, very easy to follow. And this is a telework best practices, again, do's and don'ts for a specific group of people. And our workshop is nonpartisan, vendor agnostic. We don't have to promote any specific programs or companies, but so we have like gathered a list of like all free resources, including Facebook Protect, the Google service that provides you higher secure services, and Microsoft also. And again, all these free resources, we have it available on our website. So from 2021, instead of going to all 50 states state by state, we did 10 regional workshops, one workshop, 5 to 6 states each, and we reached more than 1,500 participants. And again, we expanded our workshop to international venues, and we are getting emails from them asking us to come to their country or their institute to share what we have done, because to them this is very unique, and a lot of them are telling us they've never seen one entity to do such a big project. So using our PD background, we always make sure that we are not there to teach people only. We always listen and learn from them. And especially each state having different rules and regulations, and even in each county, they have different staff capacity, and people they have different jobs and different devices that are available. So we try to have workshop meeting with selected panelists or speakers and learn from them so that they understand and they let us before how they communicate with their own public and their own audience. So some states, a lot of people still rely on newspapers and radio, and they have a different age group to communicate different platforms. And we send out a weekly newsletter, election cybersecurity newsletter, and a lot of our workshop attendees and participants, they subscribe our weekly email. So we have more than 7,000 subscribers, and it gets sent out on Sundays, and we have a very high opening rate. And here is our election cybersecurity website, and you're gonna be able to see all our past workshop recordings and our weekly newsletter and all the information, the free resources there. So cybersecurity and elections and public policy. So I wanted to take this opportunity to really tell you that when I first joined this program, I really thought this was like public diplomacy project because one, we were there to listen first and learn from other people, and we gathered experts and programs, and we modified them state by state, and we updated our examples, news articles, because a lot of things were happening, and some were happening in that one state that we are gonna be presenting our workshop. And we did a post-workshop evaluations and surveys, and we heard a lot from people that they learned what was available on their own state. So a lot of comments were saying, "Oh, we learned what the Secretary of State office was offering," or, "Oh, thank you so much for sharing the presentation slides from the local news university." And a lot of universities have their own news outlet, so they learned a lot from them. So USC being in their state, we are very proud that we could actually put things together for the local people, because again, not every county has enough people who can gather all the information, who to contact, or where to get the information from. Sometimes they get too much information and it's just too much for them and they are overwhelmed. So that's about it that I wanted to share today. And I just want to hand it over to Adam if he has anything to say.
I just want to just add that we really did thank everybody in each of the 50 states and all of our partners in other countries, because they, without exception, were eager for us to come. I remember Angus King opened our main workshop in 2020, I think. He said, "Thank you to the University of Southern California for coming all the way to Maine from California." So, and some would say, "Thank you for the University of Southern California for coming here to fill in the blank, Nebraska, Oklahoma." What we kept hearing over and over again is that there's lots of work in election cybersecurity that's being done at universities around the United States. But as far as we know, and as far as the federal government knows, they said we were the only ones to actually go out into the field and hit all 50 states. Although Joel points out, what did we miss? The District of Columbia. Actually, the DC folks came to our Maryland workshop, but that's something we need to address. So thank you.
Actually, I wasn't going to mention the District of Columbia. Probably let me ask an obvious question. Here in our own country, we're here witnessing a lot of attacks, not from bad actors overseas, but from a loud element from one of our own political parties, including the Speaker of the House, on the integrity of the 2020 election. And more recently, we're hearing about election workers who are quitting because of security threats. What in your travels overseas, what are you hearing from your interlocutors? And do you have any suggestions of how we respond to this or handle this?
Well, let me address the second part first, because that is a very serious problem. Election workers are volunteers, and you're talking about people who are resigning because they just can't take the abuse. I'm with in Alaska, the lieutenant governor is the person who runs the election, and he said that he and his wife actually travel around Alaska, going to churches around the state on Sundays to try to recruit new election workers, because you can't run an election without people at the polling places. So this is a serious problem, and we're going to see this play out. I like to be optimistic, but it's going to be tough in some places to get the full workforce that we're used to. On questioning, I mean, we've had people question election results all the time. I think that we haven't had people question them quite as forcefully, I guess is a political, is a polite word. And so as we're looking to next year, we know that in 2020 it was polarized. We think that next year it's going to be much more difficult. Every now, I can't resist. Every now and then you find somebody who is going to defy a stereotype. And there was I probably shouldn't identify him by name. Well, he said it publicly. It was the Republican State Party chief, conservative Trump supporting Republican State Party chief in a plain state. And Judy is ruthless. She controls the technology on all of these. And so if somebody starts to go off base, she'll simply mute them. And he started to go off base. I'm thinking, uh-oh, he went after the media. And I think the media are just terrible. I think that what they've been doing is just a disgrace. CNN is a disgrace. And I wish we had people with integrity again in the media, people like Bernard Shaw. I thought, oh, I've got to save this clip and send it to Bernie Shaw, who was still alive at the time. So I never thought he probably never thought he would be endorsed by the most conservative Republicans in politics.
There's been a lot of news reports about another nonpartisan election group here that a lot of, well, Republican states are now cutting off contacts with because of whatever. Are you getting any, you're obviously not that group, but are you getting any rejection from certain states that say, oh, cybersecurity, you're obviously part of something else, we don't want you?
We haven't had that yet. We're sort of waiting for it. We know it's out there, but so far, another conservative Trump supporting official Secretary of State of Alabama couldn't have been more welcoming. And I was actually surprised. I'm here because of Zoom. I'm on camera during all these things. I'm trying to keep a straight face. As John Merrill, Secretary of State of Alabama, starts to praise USC for all its work and starts to praise me personally, then starts to praise my father. I was not expecting that. And when we were in Alabama, he would say, here, use my car. Here, use my. So there are people in both parties who recognize that this is a problem which they prefer not to have. I mean, you get into things like voting machines. That's a totally different area. We don't do voting machines. We're doing tax on election and campaign equipment and people, electronic. And I mean, we work with Homeland Security. We work with they're not partners. We've worked with 3-letter government agencies. We tell people in our workshops, if you're being attacked, here's who you call. Let the FBI know right away. They're the agency that needs to step in. That was after Obama issued a presidential order identifying the FBI as the people who are going to be responsible. Because before then, it was all, I mean, before 2016, who thought about election security? Not very many people. You go and you vote, or you mail in your ballot. But suddenly, we now are really sensitized to keeping the system secure.
And we're here in GW in a university environment, and so I'm sitting in my seat listening to this, and I'm doing what, a thought experiment, how appropriate for university I'm doing. I said, well, if you're going to vote, if your candidate is democracy, okay, how do you keep that alive? I go, well, if you're going to vote, how do you decide who to vote for? And I'm doing this, schema in my head. I said, well, you know the candidates personally. That's an option available to a very, very small minority of the voters. You can rely on your party to tell you who to vote for, and that's not really democracy. That's some kind of alternating autocracy. And then you rely on secondary sources, and media is primary. And I think there was a great quote by Thomas Jefferson that I would rather give up something else than give up newspapers. And I couldn't remember it. So as I was sitting here to ask this question, I pull up my phone and look up on Google. Where is the quote from time? So I think we're actually very vulnerable because as the business model of newspapers has gone down, and right now we depend, I mean, you got your big grant from Google. And so I think when you have the AI threat and the diminishing resources of media, it's kind of scary. And so how sanguine are you about the future of democracy if media cannot be healthy?
We did something in 2020, something else we didn't expect to do. We had an advisory group. We have our advisory group, Gary Pruitt and others who have been advising us and our center. We created another advisory group, bipartisan, secretaries of state, former governors, and now remember, this is during COVID. They said, you know, what's needed is just basic information on when, where, and how to vote, because it was all changing. And Judy and I were actually on the phone. We shouldn't name the state. We were on the phone with the Secretary of State and other senior people who were actually at the state legislature where they were writing the new laws on how and where to vote. And they were asking us, "What do you think of this?" This is not our job, but we can tell you some people you might want to call. But it was, as we all know, it was a crazy time. Everything was changing, and so we hope 2020, the real outlier in that but still is going to be, I think, to your point, a real need for reliable information on when, where, and how to vote, what the candidates' positions are. I used to live in California. You could get a big thing, everything from the state of California, from League of Women Voters, state of California, candidates. We really need that. Greta, it looks like you have the last question.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm just wondering, how can we, the United States, prevent individuals in the United States, including possibly candidates, from trying to manipulate the elections in their favor, in the favor of their candidate, or in the favor of themselves?
Well, you know what we're finding? One of the more discouraging things that we've learned the last 4 years, 5 years, is that there are American political consultants going to other countries, helping losing candidates discredit the vote.
Oh.
And I think that there should be, I don't know, some naming and shaming, because these are people going out, making money, discrediting democracy in other countries. That's.
Are they doing it here?
Oh, I'm sure that doing it here too. Joel.
Well, Adam, thank you. Sorry to cut this short so quickly, but I believe Adam has a flight that he has to catch. I want to thank both of you, Adam and Judy. We're going to be hearing a lot more about this topic over the next 12 months. And we're going to stay in touch. I want to thank also our tech hosts, Owen Foster from USC online, Gabby Stahl, Ivano, and Alexis Pozell. Join us on Monday, December 4 at noon for our December 1st Monday for a panel on World Expos. Are they the Olympics of public diplomacy? Our featured panelists will be the Honorable Mark Ritchie, Nina Forino, Anthony, and I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher this name, Bohigian. My apologies if I didn't pronounce your name correctly. This will again be a hybrid program. The in-person, like today, the in-person program will take place here at the Lindner Family Commons of the Elliott School of International Affairs at GWU. We will have a light lunch, and we ask that everybody grab the sandwich and be in your seats by 11:55 so that we can start promptly at 12 noon. Registration information and more detail on the panelists for both is on the landing page of the PDCA website. If you can't find registration information, you're welcome to email me at president@publicdiplomacy.org. We cut off the questions. There may still, people here in the room, you may have more, and I think there were more online. Please feel free to email those questions. You can email them to me. I'll make sure that,
Also, they have their emails up on the screen if you want to email them
Oh,
directly. as
okay, you can see the emails, acpowell@usc.edu or JUNG, well, you can read it. I don't have to read it out. Pick on them, send them emails. Or you can email me. We'll make sure they get answered. Also on your calendars, mark December 11 for the first annual PDCA holiday party, which will be at the Decor Bacon. More information again on the website. Glad you could all be here with us today. And the quick ad, these programs are brought to you by the USC Annenberg Center on Communication, Leadership and Policy, the GWU Institute for Public Diplomacy and Global Communication, and the Public Diplomacy Council of America. We'll see you next Monday. Next first Monday, on December 4th. Thank you. Enjoy the good weather. Bye for now.